Guys, before the video starts I am going to leave an addendum here. This is a horror anime, so it only stays until the end of this video if you're not afraid of anything and knowing that you'll be able to sleep at night. So when it comes to the end you comment if you managed it and if you liked it anime, and if you want part 2. If you want I will bring it as soon as possible, so leave a like, subscribe, and let's get to the anime. And at the beginning of everything, a girl leaves her residence, going to some place without saying where, and on the other side of the city. Ogawa starts her job at a book distribution company, and in the middle of her workday, she hears a strange sound, similar to a bird, and when looking to the side, she comments with Adashino about the sound she just heard. Then the boy makes the sound, implying that he was behind the noise all this time, but he gives the excuse that it was a kankadori that was singing, in which Adashino explains that a kankadori is also called a common cuckoo. And upon hearing this, Ogawa feels that he is just bored of working at the register with her, but Adashino claims that it is nothing. Besides, after all, he got into that job precisely to be able to work at the cash register with her, and so Ogawa says she's honored. That's why, however, she tells him not to provoke his elders. And then they start talking about how they will both be in 10 years, and Adashino states that Ogawa will be a mature woman and really attractive, and upon hearing this, she feels that this is another provocation from the boy, and Adashino explains that he is just lacking have something to do. And then Ogawa notices that bookstores are starting to close everywhere, so people are showing no to be so interested in books. The girl starts to yawn, and Adashino deduces that she stayed up all night writing something, and upon noticing him interested in this subject, Ogawa starts to talk more, and says that he read more about Kisaragi Station in a occult forum. Niso Adashino remembers what she is talking about, but says that this story is nothing more than an urban legend, full of contradictions, therefore it is just a lie. And for him, it doesn't make sense for a girl her age to find these stories amusing. In this she reminds him that he too been reading these legends, so that doesn't make him worthy of judging it, and besides, Ogawa states that with the occult they are capable of enjoying true fear. In this, Ogawa explains that this hobby acts on people's brains like appetite or sexual drive, and upon hearing this, Adashino states that she spent the entire night immersed in content similar to pornography, but Ogawa says that he understood everything wrong. And during the conversation, the manager decides to stop by, and notes that this is the first time he has seen the Adashino talking so much. In this, Ogawa says that the boy is actually a chatterbox who talks so much to the point of being irritating, and when he returns the looking at him, Adashino becomes quiet again. And then the manager gives a book to Ogawa and says that it is a book about reverse robbery, and the meaning is literally the opposite of stealing from bookstores. In this she finds the book a bit strange, but she accepts the gift. And when the break comes, Adashino asks about the novel she was writing, and Ogawa explains that she couldn't write nothing else. In this he comments about her birthday too, and says that she should have told him beforehand, so he could give her a gift to her too. And then Ogawa states that if he were kinder to her, that would already be considered a gift. And then he starts to flatter the girl, saying that he's a big fan of her work as a writer, and after they finish the work, each one goes to your house. In that, Ogawa watches TV while celebrating. She is 28 years old, but Ogawa remains attached to the writer she was when she was 15, because at that time she was capable of writing anything, even to the point of winning a prize for new talents. But when she turned 20, Ogawa was just another random person without any talent, and suddenly the book she got from the manager falls in her eyes. She picks up the book, and although she can't read its title, Ogawa notes that the book contains one of the 3 Japanese syllabaries, the hiragana. And when reading a poem from the book, Ogawa recognizes it as Manyoshu, so she decides to put the book aside briefly to go buy a cake, but on the way Adashino starts making fun of her and her age again, and then Ogawa sends the basic cliche that the age comes to everyone. Once that's done, she notices that the boy doesn't really have an ounce of delicacy in his words, but she leaves this matter alone side and goes to the convenience store. But suddenly Ogawa starts to feel a mysterious dizziness, and when he looks in the mirror, she notices that she has become younger, and with that she gets scared and ends up dropping a glass bottle on the floor. And the next day, the manager goes to Adashino and explains that Ogawa was absent from work without warning and is not attending to the phone. Adashino informs her that she is not feeling well and taunts her by saying that she is sick to her stomach, but he adds fuel to the fire and says that she could die if she didn't stay at home. And upon hearing this, the manager buys the boy's story and leaves the place, and then Adashino becomes curious to know what happened. This happened to yours, but when he sent a message to her, Ogawa ignored him too, until suddenly someone responded to him, saying she doesn't know him and says he's bothering her. And meanwhile, Ogawa continues writing his stories, paying little attention to anything else around him, and after a week of her disappearance, Adashino decides to go to her house at the manager's request, but when calling her name from her, he hears no response. And then Adashino opens the door and goes inside. Then a hidden number starts calling her cell phone, but the boy ignores the call and continues analyzing the state of the house, and notices that there is no sign of a fight there. And while he is looking for her, the girl observes a black street cat and continues writing her stories. In that, Adashino Adashino finds the book that she got from the manager, and as for Ogawa, she celebrates being a child again, because now all her writing ideas are flowing better, and so she starts running back home to keep writing. However, she notices that she ended up getting lost while walking around, so Adashino finds her and says he will show her the way back home, but when she sees him, she says she doesn't remember him, and then her head starts to hurt because this is a natural reaction that occurs in the form it is in. And then Adashino explains that she was not rejuvenated. In this case she was just pushed into a child's body. Therefore her blood, muscles, and bones became excess in that tiny body, and then she asks how he knows about these things, but as soon as he asks this question, Ogawa remembers Adashino, but it is strange that he is not surprised to see her that way. In this he comments on the book she read, and explains that it is a cursed book that should not be read aloud, but upon hearing this, Ogawa says he doesn't believe the story Adashiro is telling him, and he, in turn, states that she doesn't have reasons to doubt this. After all, she is in fact in a smaller body. And besides, Adashino says he is talking about something that could cost her life, and then he comments on the poems Manyoshu, and explains several of the poems in this collection were not written by a human, and among these poems, there is one category called miscellaneous. And when someone reads one of these poems, the person goes through a kind of rejuvenation, in which Adashino reads one of the poems, which tells about a nobleman who wishes for the return of a lady's youth. In this regard, Ogawa continues to distrust him, and states that he had never heard of poems that cause different effects when they are read, and then Adashino explains that she received the elixir from the moon god, a being called Tsukiyomi. However, for the effect of this poem to be started, the person needs to fulfill a series of conditions. After all, this is a poem, very rare magic, and the first and second conditions are to read the poem exactly at midnight under the moonlight, while the third condition is that the reader is at least 28 years old, and upon hearing this, Ogawa notes that she has indeed met all these requirements. However, Adashino goes to the final condition, and says that for the effect to work, the poem must be read by a virgin maiden. In this Ogawa feels that he misunderstood him, but the boy repeats the last condition 2 more times and out loud, so as not to. No more doubts remain, and then Ogawa tells him to stop saying these things, and asks why a book like this ended up in his hands, and Adashino states that this is just an unfortunate coincidence, as she is not any kind of chosen one. And upon hearing this, she is more relieved. After all, it is not her fault for being cursed, but Adashino remember that she was walking around without thinking about the consequences, and that makes her irresponsible in the same way. Then Ogawa starts to bleed, and asks if she will really die, and then he explains that only moonlight can save her. Therefore they must go somewhere where they can see the moon. And when they arrive at a place where the moon is visible, Adashino decides to start the ritual with it, and explains that the last poem what she read was a henka, so now she must read the chuka, which accompanies the first poem, and by following everything it says, Ogawa finally returns to her normal size, but she is embarrassed to see that her clothes are too small. So Adashino looks in her backpack for something she can use to cover herself, and in the meantime Ogawa takes the book and runs away with him, saying that Adashino cannot put an end to him. After all, she still wants to use him to have some advantage. And then he runs after her, and states that that book is very dangerous, so she uses the rejuvenation spell once again to escape from him, and then Ogawa returns to his normal size again, demonstrating that he has control total about the book. However, Adashino manages to reach her anyway, and asks her once again to give him the book, and Ogawa says that needs this book, because if she isn't young, no one will read her books, and besides, Ogawa feels much worse being an immature adult who doesn't know how to socialize with anyone. Therefore, her only refuge is to write her romance books, in which Adashino states that she can continue writing. Yes, after all, he is one of your fans. And upon being flattered, Ogawa decides to obey him, and delivers the book, and after that, Adashino goes to a ticket sale, and puts the cursed book on the table. The attendant proposes exchanging that book for a ticket to the Yami station, but Adashino chooses to keep the book, which is basically the name off the anime, and morally this is very good in episode 2. And as you go deeper in her memories of the past, Sumireko remembers a group of men talking about her literary work, and they found it strange that she wrote such melancholic dramas at the age she was at the time, apart from the other details, which make her work much more modern. However, one of the men claims that the themes in her stories are common and have an unconvincing premise, so he concludes that she is only writing to please herself, and meanwhile, Adashino refuses to exchange the book for a ticket to Yami station, and upon returning to his Odo sister, he lies saying that that book was not enough to exchange for the ticket. However, he claims he will do anything to help her return to her world. And as for Sumireko, she remains blank, so Odo asks if that girl is his girlfriend, but Adashino explains that it's just your senpai from work, who ended up almost dying after getting involved with a curiosity. And noticing her practically exposed, Adashino takes shorts from her sister to wear Sumireko, and meanwhile, Odo says that at his school there is another curiosity that he can explore. And during the conversation, Sumireko returns to her normal form, so they return home and Adashino asks Sumireko to turn around. Friend of her sister, but upon hearing this, she doesn't understand anything. And then, the boy explains about the curiosities, which in this case are mysterious phenomena caused by spirits, in which she remembers the disappearance of Hirata Atsutane, and Adashino explains that people who disappear in this way could be those considered unnecessary in their original world. Then Sumireko gets straight to the point and asks what he wants her to do, and then Adashino tells him that her sister Oto attends the Kun Women's Institute, a place where several supernatural phenomena apparently occur, and as he cannot to enter the girls' school, he needs Sumireko to infiltrate the school by pretending to be Oto's friend. And without even thinking much, she agrees to help him, but her uniform ends up bursting, leaving her not knowing what to do. But Adashino says she has an idea. In this case, she will have to use her powers as a bearer of youth to transform into a high school student. In this she stands up and recites the poem from the book, thus obtaining the body of a high school girl, which makes Adashino completely upset because the guy likes MILFs more. And the next day, after getting ready, they walk toward school, and Sumireko remembers that entering this institution will be very easy because, as Adashino himself said, they accept students of any level there. However, the institution follows a strict culture that honors public morals and traditions. And returning to school, Sumireko is enchanted to see all those young people, but Oto is bored when she sees the aunt talking and asks Sumireko not to say random things to her. And in the middle of it all, two of Oto's friends go up to her and ask who the girl is accompanying her. In this, Oto introduces Sumireko as Wakazukuri, and when the girls leave, Oto reveals a little of the reason for his anger, saying that she should stop seducing his brother, and in the end, he insults her by calling Sumireko a lonely wife. And moving further, she remembers what Adashino told her about some girls not going to school and everything. This is thanks to the mysterious incidents that are occurring, so he asks her to check the truth behind these incidents. And when meeting with teacher Uname, Oto tries to control Sumireko's emotions a little about that environment. Teenager, then Uname asks the name of this new student, and Oto introduces her again as Wakazukuri, but soon gets lost to avoid problems. And then she locks Sumireko in the bathroom for the entire class, and when she goes back there to see her, Sumireko starts to regret, saying he hoped to talk to high school girl sis, instead of just sitting on the bathroom toilet with nothing to do. However, Oto just gives her something to eat, and states that these fantasies in his head were never part of the plan, so she goes to a place in the school that was probably a curiosity. And when pointing to a specific place in the bathroom, Oto states that the curiosity would be there, but Sumireko says no, can see nothing, but she asks to hear the history of that place, and Oto explains that what is there is a kind of trail left by something that happened, and these things are called markers by Adashino. And upon hearing this, Sumireko deduces that if there is a place with one of these markers, it means that there was some curiosity about it there before. And when they leave the bathroom, she asks how long Oto has been able to see the marker in that bathroom, and she says that seen him for a month. And suddenly, a girl notices the two of them leaving the bathroom together and starts saying things implying that they were messing around in the bathroom, when another girl asks Oto to introduce her girlfriend to her friends. And when they return to the classroom, the girls start gossiping about the other students' love lives, until suddenly they notice that Wakazukuri is an experienced high school senpai, and so they ask to know more about her love life and not to. Losing her pose, Sumireko claims to be capable of driving any man crazy. However, Tama asks her to say something even more explicit. After all, in that school everything is very peaceful to the point of nausea. In this, Sumireko remembers that there are students who choose not to return to school even though it is apparently peaceful. And upon hearing this, you notice that she is talking about bibs, which in this case is the name of a strange occurrence, but very common at that school. And the incident begins with a girl having her body suddenly burned to the point where she starts salivating, in which the girls who experience this incident are taken home and quickly improve, but when they return to school, the symptoms return, and because of this, these students stop attending school. And when they see that Sumireko has stopped with the sensual stories, the students grab her, asking her to tell her stories again. Then the teacher enters the room and tells the girls to stop forcing Sumiko to do something she doesn't want. That said, Uname calls her to talk alone. And when they move away from the other students, the teacher asks Sumireko if she is bullied by the other students, and Sumireko, she says no, but she believes she doesn't fit into the group of these young girls. And when they talk about other subjects, Uname asks if she has any dreams, and Sumireko says she would like to be a writer. And upon hearing this, the teacher is very happy for her student, and says that she will hope that she achieves her goals. And after the conversation with the teacher, she is surprised by some students, who ask her to continue with the stories. Sensual, but suddenly, two of the students fall to the floor salivating. Then Oto points to the markers, and Sumireko starts to recite one of the poems from the book. And when talking a little about his childhood, Uname informs that she was taken in by her grandmother after her parents died, and although she didn't have much luxury, Uname feels that the days with her grandmother were the most peaceful and kind, but that all changed from the moment she went to school, because her classmates made fun of her for having simple clothes, and in one of the classes, the teacher asks the students, bring a mop of floors the next day, as that is the day they will clean the entire school together, and when they return home, the unnamed grandmother sews several floor cloths and tells her to share them with her friends. And the next day, when she sees that a boy is mopping the floor, she decides to give one to him, so the children of the devils don't miss the opportunity to mock the girl, saying that her clothes are made of the same fabric as her clothes floor she brought. And as for the boy who received the cloth, he throws it away, and says that the cloth smells bad, and after that, unnamed's grandmother is called at school, and discovers that her granddaughter ended up fighting with some students, so the teacher suggests that she ask apologies to your colleagues. However, Tae defends her granddaughter, saying that she would not be violent for no reason, which makes the teacher stressed, because believes that Tae is criticizing the way she manages her classes. And returning to the present, Adashino asks if Sumireko is able to determine something after seeing the bibs in person, and she explains that after being taken out of the school, the girl simply regained consciousness. In this, Adashino, he appears to be in a very good mood, having found yet another curiosity. And when asking his sister about the markers, Oto says he saw them as soon as the girls collapsed to the ground, and he claims to be very calm now, as the only thing that matters to him is Oto's safety. That being said, he explains to them that now that eels know about the existence of curiosity at school, the next step will be to capture it. In this, he comments on a philosopher called Inoue Enryo, who wrote a lecture about yukai where they are divided as true mysteries and false mysteries. False ones would be fictions born from things, such as fears or misunderstandings, and on the other hand, true mysteries are indicative of real anomalous phenomena. Therefore they are divided between genuine mysteries and supposed mysteries. And as for anomalous phenomena that can be verified in some way, they are called supposed mysteries. In that, Sumireko concludes that truly anomalous phenomena that cannot be explained by science are called genuine mysteries. However, she notes that the philosopher's definition of genuine mysteries applies to all laws of nature, in which Adashino says that his personal definition of genuine mysteries is more literal. In this case, they are genuine curiosities, and how the genuine mysteries are very rare events to happen. He believes that the school's curiosity has nothing to do with it. And then, Sumireko deduces that her school infiltration mission has come to an end, but Adashino states that she will need to go to school the next day too. But upon arriving at school, she is arrested again in the bathroom, whereupon Unnamed saves her. And then Sumireko tells the teacher that she didn't think about telling her about the bullying she was suffering, because she thought that saying something wouldn't change anything. In this, Unnamed notes that just attacking those responsible for bullying would not be enough, and so she tries to lick the floor, but Adashino shrinks the shadow from the ground, and says that she is prohibited from trying to do that again, and she finds it strange that there is a boy there, and besides that she notices Wakazukuri's different body, and asks who the two of them are. In this, he introduces himself as the guardian of a student at school, and when Wakazukuri begins to speak, the teacher recognizes her also, and asks if she was that child from before, but Sumireko leaves these conversations aside, and asks if Unnamed is behind the bibs. At that, Adashino interrupts them, and comments about Ushioni, a monster from folklore that is described as a being that likes to kill and eat humans, but the best known monster is the bull-headed spider, but its appearance and personality, they tend to change a lot depending on how the folktale is passed down. And when one of these Ushioni licks a person's shadow, he suddenly begins to drool, and then his body heats up until that the person dies. Given all this context, Adashino states that she looks like the bibs. Other than that, he found out through the Tama that the bibs were students who ended up getting involved in some fight, and taking these points into consideration, he deduces that Unnamed was borrowing the power of an Ushioni to end with bullying at the root, and for that reason they used a victim of bullying as bait. That being said, he starts to smell her, and notices that the problem is with her hair ornament, but when trying to take it away from her, Unnamed headbutts it, and then, Sumireko talks to the teacher, and explains that she doesn't. You need to put an end to bullying that hurts your students, as they can work together to put an end to this evil little by little. And although she agrees to give her hair ornament, Unnamed states that children cannot continue to be bullied while waiting for something to change. And then, she licks Sumireko's face, making her start to burn, but Adashino manages to save her in time. But when she wakes up, Sumireko notices them extremely injured, so Adashino asks her to take care of Oto if he doesn't come back alive. And as for Unnamed, she remembers her childhood again, and goes back to the day when her grandmother gave her an amulet that was passed down through their family for generations. And returning to the present, Unnamed remains irritated with the bullying and intimidation that occurs in schools, as that is what she suffered during his entire childhood. Therefore, his biggest objective is to get rid of this evil once and for all. In this, Adashino goes to her and starts saying inverse phrases, because according to folklore, this is the method to neutralize a Ushioni. And then, Unnamed explains that he only did that because Sumireko tried to steal her amulet, but Adashino informs her that that amulet is actually a relic known as Ushinatama, a fragment of an Ushioni. However, as it was passed down generations, it came came to be considered a normal amulet by Uname's family. However, Adashino states that this item is still cursed, and this curse always returns to the bearer of the object after all. Her instincts of anger towards others end up swallowing herself at some point. Having said that, he asks her to hand over the amulet, as he needs it to send his sister back home, but Uname continues to insist on her idea, so Adashino uses her power against her, but makes it clear that she ignores the importance of Uname in his and his sister's lives, because if it weren't for her, they wouldn't be there. However, he also cares about the people she excludes when carrying out her justice, so Uname begins to have memories of the times who was bullied, and after Adashino finishes attacking her, Sumireko goes to see how the situation is, and then she finds out that everything will be fine, and you notice that your injuries have healed out of nowhere. In this, Adashino explains that the curse of youth is similar to form memory, therefore she will recover from a certain level of injury, and then he asks why she didn't run away, and Sumireko states that she is a writer, therefore you can't leave without seeing the end of the story. Then Oto appears there, and asks her brother not to try so hard for her, and after that, Adashino comments to Sumireko that the incident that occurred at school was not the work of a simple Ushioni, but of a Chinrinki, a fierce eight-legged god, heads, which after being defeated by the Yamato court, its fragments became the Ushionis. In this, Adashino deduces that the teacher has weakened the true power of the curse, and that is why he ended up interpreting evil is the cause of the accidents, and meanwhile, Uname leaves his room and knocks on someone else's door. A little later we see Adashino and Sumireko in a conversation about in Europe the number of times you hear a cuckoo cry is the number of years until you get married. And she then says that she heard it 3 times, so he has this time to prepare to give her an extravagant gift, and the boy keeps repeating, cuckoo, leaving her completely angry because he is delaying her wedding. Then she tells him not to curse her marriage, so the boy says that speaking of which Uname sensei is back at work, and then Sumireko says that she just hopes nothing else happens. And speaking of the devil, Uname appears falling all clumsy and attracting the attention of the two, and then apologizes for having caused them so much trouble, and then says that without them she could have done something that she could never take back. Then she says that from now on she will work to eliminate bullying with her own efforts, and that is her new dream. Then she says goodbye to the two of them, wishing them good luck in writing the novel. And Adashino asks if Sumireko will have the next day off, so Sumireko says that she intends to spend the day off dedicating herself to writing, so the boy already sends a cuckoo and she gets pistol with him. Now it's night. Oto-san has an umbrella swinging up and down and making seeds bloom in the vase, until she is interrupted by Ren who, after taking a few friendly punches, was enough to make her feel that post-gym pain. So Oto even tells him to ask the old man for help, but he says everything is fine and tells them to have a slumber party. In the morning, in a very suspicious scene, Sumireko is now wondering who those two were. So, in a boost of motivation, she decides that she will drink alcohol and watch the sakura trees bloom so that she can achieve her long-awaited inspiration. When she goes down she comes across a somewhat suspicious kitten, and when she returns she notices that the cat is still there and asks her if she was a stray cat, and when she decides to go in, the cat already enters her house ninja style without let her realize. However, the girl is now very happy eating her sushi there, stuffing her face with alcohol and watching the much acclaimed sakura trees, all while she writes and sends more alcohol in, creating more and more suspicious scenes. So when she goes to get the sushi, she realizes that it is no longer there, and when she quickly looks around she identifies the cat with her sushi, trespassing and theft. This cat wants to activate the 5 stars in GTA, but Sumireko is very good today and just send that smile and send more alcohol in and let it go. And when she was about to take that naughty nap, she receives a message from Adashiro asking if she has a moment, and she already says that she doesn't have any money to lend, so he says that he knows, after all, she spends it all on that cheap, low-grade beer of malt that. She is surprised and asks if he's stalking her or something, and he says it's just a hunch, and then he skips the game and asks him a favor, that he's going to be away to take care of some business and he hoped she could look Oto. And before she could even think about it, Oto appears at her house saying surprise, all shy, and let's face it, the author of this anime likes some suspicious scenes with Sumireko, so she looks at her cell phone and Adashiro says he's counting on her. The cat, after filling her belly, already puts her foot in and she invites the Oto to come in, and asks her what exactly is happening there. So Oto explains that Ren was injured during the incident and he needs treatment, and then Sumireko says that she already imagined it and asks if the two of them have health plans, leaving the girl completely uncomfortable, and she realizes that she apologizes and says that she won't interfere more. And then she says everything is fine and that the girl can stay in her house for as long as she wants and to feel at home. And then Oto looks around and observes the mess and says that she is grateful but that she wouldn't want to stay in that pigsty, making Sumireko completely uncomfortable. So she says it's time for spring cleaning and for Oto to help her. Then Oto says she dug her own grave, and then it's a speed run of tidying up the house. And look, I don't want jokes here in the comments. We leave the cancellation for Leo Lins. And in the blink of an eye, 10 bags of trash are there, and yet it looks like they didn't fix anything, and Oto is pistol whipped saying he doesn't know what's wrong with that place. And then Sumireko thanks the girl, who is completely disappointed, and he says it's nothing and that he really wanted to help. Then Sumireko calls the girl to freshen up and tells her that she will lend her a towel since she didn't bring one, and so they go to a bathroom where the girl is enchanted by everything she sees. So Sumireko asks if it's her first time in a public bath and she says yes, and already bathing Sumireko asks if they're not going to take a bath together. And my friend, this is getting very suspicious. The girl is already shy. And already in the bath, Sumireko asks about the extinct station where the girl lives with her brother, and the girl says that they really live alone. And then Sumireko asks if they can take a shower and all that good stuff, and then Oto responds that they do what they need to do. So the Oto returns the question, saying if she can take a shower in her own apartment, why did she take a shower there? And then Sumireko responds that since she received her visit, she thought it would be a better option to go to a place with more space. And then she says that her bathtub is always very tight, and she can't feel comfortable when she takes a bath, although now that she can become a child she can stretch her legs better. So Oto asks if it wouldn't be easier for her to just lose weight, and Sumireko already tells the girl to stop right there, that anything after that she'll be walking on eggshells. A little later, Oto looks at Sumireko's airbags and looks at herself, and then the girl doesn't think twice and already punches Sumireko's airbags. And already after the sauna, Sumireko is recovering from the blow, and Oto says that she would like to buy a coffee but that she didn't have any money, and Sumireko does good to the girl and already gives them 2 coffees so they can relax after the bath and sauna. So Oto says she's had better drinks and Sumireko tells her to just not complain and be grateful. Then it switches to Sumireko in the massage chair asking Oto what she wants for dinner, and she replies ramen. And when they leave the establishment, the girl who was watching the mentor before is still there watching everything and thinks that the Oto's underwear is in that woman's bag there. And my friends, the anime is trying to demonetize the video, so leave a like AE to ensure that it reaches everyone. And then the owner of the bathroom tells this psychopath whose name is Mari so she can take care of the reception, and she's going home for a while this crazy woman is thinking about their underwear. So Adashir is walking down the street until he notices something different and walks to the place. There he meets the old man that OTA mentioned before, and the old man recognizes him, and he already sends him a rear naked choke and tells him to calm down, otherwise they'll attract a lot of attention, and say that that's not a place where people should be, and tell him to go home for his own good. And soon after, Adashino asks if he doesn't want the gift he brought for him, and in the blink of an eye, the old man already says that he was waiting for him and that he is very welcome there. Next is the guy already burning a cigarette and telling him to bring a cigar and drink next time, and Adashir already tells him to take it easy. And then the old man tells them get down to business, and he's like the danger. He has everything there: fake passport, fake bank account, the print of the brunette's words telling you that she loved you, also fake. The guy is really angry. Then the old man asks if he used his eyes, and the boy confirms, and then he gets a lecture from the old man saying that he already warned him, the more he uses it the more his body will be destroyed. The guy literally has the Sharingan. And after the old man's lecture, he goes to see what the boy's eyes are like and sees that the mess is really ugly. So we're back to Sumireko and Oto tasting that badass, and then the girls start talking about where they came from. Sumireko says that she left her parents' house, and Oto then says that she came from the other side, generating more doubts. Next, Oto asks if Sumireko has a family, and she says yes, where she grew up, and then Oto says the same for her too, and in an atmosphere of mystery, Oto cuts the subject short by asking if he can steal her noodles. And then the old man says he's surprised how the boy survived and that he'll try to fix it, but it's just a temporary break. The old man says that he doesn't need to be in a hurry because it's a new neighborhood, and with each new place, new gods will inhabit that place, so he can take his time and relax. After all, with a face as scary as his sister's you might be scared. Next we see Oto and Sumireko in the room. Then Oto, who was reading the book, asks more about it, and Sumireko then says that she wrote it when she was 15 years old, and to date it has been her only published book. In this Oto says that it is the same age as she is currently, and Sumireko understands herself. A little later Oto falls asleep, Pike Snorlax, and Sumireko goes to get a blanket so the girl can rest 100%, and wonders who she and her brother really are, a little before she falls asleep leaning against the bed next to the girl. The little girl then begins to dream. She is in a place full of snow that is covered by a sinister aura, and within this aura she can see her brother, the same one who extends his hand to her, causing the girl to wake up immediately scared thinking about him. In the morning the girl wakes up and picks up a kind of box that was on the table a little before Sumireko appeared and said good morning, asking her if she hadn't eaten yet. Apparently it's a type of food as a way of thanking liking the girl. However, the girl says that she has to go to school and that she would like to eat a little more than that, and then her stomach growls, and then Sumireko laughs and says that she was joking, taking that stupid snack out of her bag and saying that she bought it for two, leaving the girl super happy that she wouldn't go hungry. After that, there are more suspicious scenes of the two changing, and when Oto goes to the bathroom, crazy Sumireko puts on a school uniform too and says she's going along. So Sumireko says she didn't take advantage of school properly, and Oto already questions whether she doesn't have a romance to write, and then Sumireko tells her not to worry, after all she could get a lot of material there, and then we see Oto's dissatisfied and embarrassed face. And a little later we see a memory of Oto eating that noodles with her brother. And in a conversation between two friends, one of them comments on her debut as a beautician that will take place the following day. In this, Shizuku says she is amazed to see her friend fulfilling her dream, and then she hands Tomoko an umbrella, celebrating your new job. And right on time a rain starts, so the friends decide to hurry up and go home, and the next day, Sumireko walks towards the school, and soon he is enchanted to see so many young schoolgirls walking together, and upon hearing this, Oto turns around again, irritate her, and suddenly, Nodoka and Mari meet them on the way, and upon greeting each other, the girls continue their journey alone. Then Sumireko notices that they are having an ordinary day, and compares adolescence to a simple rerun of a TV drama. And after arriving at school, Sumireko goes to the bathroom again while Oto studies in his class, and after a while, the break time bell rings, and then Sumireko sits on one of the benches to eat, and when she sees Nodoka next to her, she tries to start a conversation with the girl, but Nodoka is distracted looking at her tablet. And after that, she meets Oto, but soon after the other girls in the class come to them and ask to talk with Sumireko again. Afterwards, the girls go to the school terrace, and in the midst of conversations, they return to hotter topics, and then Mari says that teacher Uname's underwear was the sexy black type, and she claims that she saw this after Uname tripped in front of you. In this, Sumireko states that Mari is the most perverted girl of all, although she appears to be calm, and then the girls associate this characteristic of hers with the fact that her parents run a bathhouse, but Mari claims that this has nothing to do with C, and asks Oto not to interpret it in the wrong way. And as for Erika, she finds it strange that Uname wears sexier underwear, because in her mind, she believed that the teacher wore something cuter, so Tamao states that the most modest girls are the ones who most often wear things erotic. And in the middle of this discussion about panties, Nodoka lifts her skirt and says that she also wears black underwear, and when she remember what Tamao said about modest girls being more libertine, they all turn their gazes to Oto, and they ask what kind of underwear she wears, and the girl simply says that she wears cloth ones, making everyone burst out laughing. And on the way back home, Sumireko decides to stop by a bathroom first, and end up coming across the teacher Uname. Then they enter the establishment, and are attended to by Mari, who, upon seeing the older version of Sumireko, asks if they have seen each other somewhere before. And then, Sumireko disguises it by saying no, and Uname says that she works at the bookstore near the station, so she believes that Mari saw her there. And after sorting out this whole mess, Mari just stands in the corner and gets ready to see the three of them without clothes, but soon after, she gives up on this idea, as Mari needs to defend her family's reputation. And meanwhile, Sumireko tells Uname that she didn't imagine seeing her in a public bath, after all she always considered her a person very refined, but Uname denies this statement, and says that her personality is the complete opposite of what it seems. And as for Mari, she notices Oto getting into the shower quickly, and is frustrated that she can't see her taking off her clothes in time. However, when returning her vision to Sumireko, Mari notices that she is more naked than before, and that is enough to make her drive you crazy. However, Mari states that her main interest is in Uname, as she wants to confirm her taste in underwear with her friends her own eyes, but when she sees them taking too long to take off their clothes, Mari screams in frustration, and then they finally decide take off her clothes, but Mari's mother appears just in time, asking to take her place. And then, she explains to her mother that she needs to stay at the reception for longer, but when she turns her gaze to the teacher Uname, Mari notices that she has already entered the bathroom. And after the shower, Uname asks if Sumireko will take care of Oto again, and she says yes, because her brother asked her to her help, in which Uname invites the two to go to sleep at her house, as she will prepare dinner for them all, but Sumireko initially chooses to refuse the offer so as not to upset her. In this, Uname states that her duty as a teacher is to take care of her students, therefore she sees no problems with that, and how much Oto she shows that she is not so interested in going to the teacher's house, but Uname changes her idea by saying that he will have candy. And arriving at the teacher's house, Sumireko notices that the girl falls into temptation very easily. After all, nowadays no one else is only attracted to sweets. And when noticing the place more, Sumireko notices that the teacher has very chic taste, as the place where she actually lives. It gives the feeling of being the habitat of a respectable instructor, and in addition, she notes that that place must be very inspiring to write. In this, Uname says that she already expected to hear that from a writer, and and when she turns her focus to Oto, she notices that the girl is very focused on bars made from peanuts. And then, she decides to start preparing dinner, and Oto comments that the teacher seems to be very happy about something. From this, Sumireko deduces that she just likes cooking a lot. And while he leaves the food preparing, Uname goes to the portrait of a relative to offer his prayers. In that, Sumireko decides to help her with the prayer, and then Oto finds the two sitting on the floor and asks what they are doing, and Sumireko explains that they are greeting someone who passed away. And then, they decide to go back to the kitchen for dinner, but Oto remains in that room staring blankly at the portrait. And then she returns to the room too, and is delighted with her teacher's food, but Uname says that she used just a few leftovers to prepare that dinner. But when he hears her talk about the ingredients she used in the food, Sumireko notices that Uname practically selected everything there is in a classic Japanese lunchbox, and when she looks to the side, she sees Oto apparently disappointed with the simplicity of the food. But upon taking her first bite of food, Sumireko states that the meal is still delicious even though it is simple. And Oto, in turn, gives Uname's dish a chance, and notes that the food is actually very good, and Uname says that besides as delicious as your meal is, it is also very healthy. And after they finish eating, Sumireko notices that it's already very late, and tells Oto that they should go home, and upon hearing so, Uname reminds her that they can both sleep at her house that night, but Sumireko insists on leaving, saying that he doesn't want to abuse her goodwill anymore. In this, Uname notices that the weather looks like it's about to close, so she deduces that it's best for them to stay there, and then Sumireko tries to talk again, but Uname interrupts her, and says he has a delicious pudding for breakfast of them the next day. And upon hearing this, she gets Oto right away, and then they decide to go to sleep soon. But when they get to the room, Sumireko finds it strange, the fact that she placed the mattresses very close to each other. And then, Uname explains that he always wanted to sleep with 3 people lined up to form the kanji for river, which is formed precisely by 3 aligned lines. So she allows Sumireko to stay between the two, but when they lie down, she remembers that Oto was supposed to warn his brother about where she is. However, when looking to the side, she sees the girl already out, so Uname deduces that she was getting lost, feeling tense, and that's why she ended up falling asleep quickly. And as for Sumireko, Uname thanks her for paying respect to her grandmother at that moment, but she calls him Ogawa, and then Sumireko asks her to stop to call her that, as both her family and friends just call her Sumireko. In this case, the teacher accepts her request, and says that she will only call her that way, and in the middle of the night, Sumireko remains awake while the other two hug her. She feels unable to sleep, but after a while she ends up falling asleep too. And then Oto wakes up and hears some sounds coming from the door similar to knocks, and as she gets closer, she hears someone trying to open the bedroom door, but the person gives up, and Oto sees the shadow of the person's feet in the doorway, and decides to open the door to see if anyone is still there. But when checking the outside of the house, she notices that the person has already left, but she sees the handle of the other door shaking, as if an invisible person was trying to enter the house by any means possible. Then she looks at the ground and sees some footprints forming in the puddle of water, and then she covers her mouth so she doesn't end up shouting, and then remembers that his brother had been tasked with looking for more curiosities, and although he is very busy, Adashino had promised that he would return her to her world. However, Oto states that if she is to return, they must do it together, and so she starts running in search of the plates, but comes across a simple street sign, and suddenly, she is attacked by Shizuku, who calls her a monster, and Sumireko appears just in time to protect her, and Shizuku tells her to stay out of this matter. After all, she has a score to settle with Oto, but Sumireko tells her to calm down, and he shows her a little of his supernatural ability to prove that he also has contact with this type of thing. That done, Sumireko is willing to listen to Shizuku, and then she shows Tomoko footage, where she reports about the apparition of a monster that tries to open the door of her house, and when opening the door, Tomoko claims to have seen a glimpse of a girl wearing a red dress. So she decides to end this situation that day, and tries to catch that monster in the jump, but when Tomoko opens the door, she screams and ends the recording abruptly. And after finishing showing the video, Shizuku informs that this was the last recording that Tomoko left before disappearing, and since it's been more than a year, Shizuku spends every rainy night looking for this child in red. And although she only has this video as a clue, Shizuku claims that she will still find her friend, and in the meantime, Adashino is informed about his sister's whereabouts, and thanks Sumireko for taking such good care of Oto. And as for what Shizuku had said, he says he has a good idea about what she's talking about, and assures her that he'll be back soon. And this was another video. If you liked it and want more videos like this, subscribe, leave your like, and see you next time.